All right, welcome back to Seamwork Radio, everybody. Today we're talking about tools that we wish we'd bought sooner. So today we're going to cover a few of our favorite tips for choosing tools, and Haley and I are each going to share the top 3 tools that we wish we'd bought sooner. So today we thought we'd introduce something new this week to start off the show, something we're calling Icebreakers for Makers. We love icebreakers at the Seamwork office. We have a lot of fun with icebreakers to start off our meetings. And Chelsea, who is our technical illustrator, she is great at coming up with really funny icebreakers, usually something around food, I think.
Yeah. I think my favorite one was, if you could only eat potatoes one way for the rest of your life, how would you eat them? Ponder that for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, think about that one. It's a big decision.
It's a rude question, honestly.
Yeah, it's way too difficult for an icebreaker. So we are going to start off our episodes with an icebreaker, and we'd love it if you would hashtag us or at mention us and hashtag with Icebreakers for Makers on Instagram and let us know your answers. So today, our icebreaker, and I want you to start us off, Haley. The question is, what's a tool or craft item that you bought and you never used?
Oh boy. This is embarrassing because I tell people they should get this tool all the time, but it's duckbill scissors for trimming grading seam allowances. I bought a pair for myself, but I never use it because I always have my little small trimming shears next to my sewing machine, and I just use that without thinking twice and not like digging deeper in the toolbox and getting my duckbill scissors. So that's embarrassing because I tell people that's a great tool, you should get that, and then I never use it.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm turning into my mother already.
Well, you're a mom now, so.
I am, so it's only fitting. What about you, Sari?
Okay, the one that really comes to mind is I have this really beautiful vintage sewing machine that I bought on Craigslist. It's a Necchi, which is an Italian brand. Really beautiful machine. It's like the shiny black, really cool. And I bought it to sew with at home because, as you know, Haley, all my sewing stuff is at our current studio. And so I wanted to set up a little mini sewing space in my basement. This was years ago. I have never done it. I have this machine. I got it repaired. I got it refurbished. I got it running. I got the electrical fixed on it, everything. And then I never have sewn on it. Not even once, not even one time. I tested a little patch, but that was it. I love my Bernina at the studio so much. I can't do just a straight stitch.
You need options.
Yeah. It's a beautiful machine. It looks lovely, but I've never used it.
Yeah. Are you going to keep it?
Maybe. I don't know. For now. So if you have an answer for us about what's a craft item or a tool that you've bought and never used, then let us know. You can hashtag it Icebreakers for Makers, and we will check that hashtag and see what you guys are saying about this. So today on that subject, we're going to be talking about tools, right, Haley?
Yeah. So like Sari mentioned, we're talking about tools, and this was inspired by a post on the Seamwork community, and we'll link that below in the show notes. So Sari, I know that this is super relevant to you because you're moving soon and about to set up a sewing room. So what are you planning to buy?
Yes, I just mentioned that I don't really have a sewing space at home. I do all my sewing at our studio, which it's not far from my house right now, but once we move, it will be far from my house. And so I actually have now a room that I am going to set up as a sewing room. So I'm super, super excited about it, but it means I need to buy all new stuff, including a new sewing machine, like everything. So it's very exciting. But I think the tools, other than the sewing machine and a serger, and some stuff that I already have. I have a few things already, but I think the main things that I am going to buy first are rotary cutting tools. That's definitely a must for me, like a nice big mat, a rotary cutter. And other than that, I think pressing tools are probably the other thing that's going to be really important for me. I like to have a really nicely set up pressing station. So that's it. I think things that'll come later are probably like a dress form and stuff like that. Just a little less essential.
Yeah, the nice to have items.
Yeah. So we wanted to share some tips for you around tools, and then we wanted to get into our favorite tools and some of the things that we wish that we'd bought sooner. So this might give you some ideas if you don't have these tools already, things that you might want to add to your collection, or things you might not have heard of, or maybe just things you thought you didn't need and might actually be super helpful for you. I wanted to start us off by talking about tools in general. So I was once listening to this podcast. I don't remember what the podcast was. This was years and years and years ago. But my friend Amy Carroll was on the podcast, and Amy is the author of Bend the Rules Sewing, and she lives here in Portland. And she said something that has always stuck with me. She said, it was something along these lines, that if you can't do something, if you find yourself unable to do something, then it's probably because you either don't have the right technique or you don't have the right tool. And that always stuck with me because I just think it's a really great way to break down a problem that you're struggling with. You know, it's probably one of those two things, and you can do anything. You just need to learn the right technique to do it and have the right tool to do it. And I just found that really empowering. Don't you think, Haley?
Yeah, what I really love about that in particular is it like takes I think when we are struggling with something, it's really easy to put the blame on yourself. I don't know what I'm doing, blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
Lots of self-blame. But when you break it down and think of it in this way, then it takes off the pressure, which I feel like a low pressure environment is the best learning environment for me personally. And it's so true. Often you just need the right tool, the right technique.
Yeah. And if you can break it down into one of those two things, or maybe it's both of those things, then it's a learning experience. It's not a fault of your own, or, you know, something that you can't change. It's just, you need to do a little bit more research.
Yeah. Growth mindset. Grow your sewing tool stash. Grow your knowledge.
Yeah. So the other thing that we thought was really great advice that came from somebody else, this was a tip that I think you, Haley, mentioned that you read this during Design Your Wardrobe in the Seamwork community. That someone said to find, if you know, you're struggling with something, you find something that you hate to do when it comes to sewing, and then find a tool that makes that easier. I love that advice. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, I think so too. When she said it, it was such a light bulb moment for me. And I realized kind of like inadvertently, I have been doing that all along. We'll get into that later with my sewing, my top 3 tools, but definitely amazing tip.
Yeah, I really like that tip. So if there's something that you struggle with or you just don't like doing, there's probably a tool that'll make it a little bit faster, a little bit easier, and maybe reduce that level of burning hatred a little bit more. Or, you know, mild annoyance, whatever it is. And then a third tip is to make your tools accessible to you. And I think especially the tools that you use frequently, to make those accessible, and that will just make your life easier. I was thinking about this as I was putting on makeup this morning, because I feel like I have a lot of makeup. I mean, it's not a lot compared to some other people, but it seems like a lot to me because I only wear, you know, a few things every day. I have like a really quick makeup routine. I wear the same like 5 things every day, but I have this like kit of all this makeup sitting on my dresser that I don't, and then I have to dig through it every day to find the things, the one eyeliner, the one mascara that I use. So I was just thinking about that. And I think that's true for sewing too. If you could take the things that you use frequently and that are most valuable to you and make them really accessible, then it's going to make your sewing go faster, and it's just going to make things a lot more pleasant.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe I need to make those duckbill scissors more accessible. Maybe that's my problem.
Yeah. You know what you need is one of those like tool belt aprons.
That's a great
I want to
idea.
make one of those.
It would be a great pattern, actually.
Yeah, it would be a great pattern. I've thought about that. I would love to have one for gardening, and I would love to have one for sewing. And then maybe, other stuff too, woodworking or whatever.
Yeah, I'm literally writing it down right now. It's going in the notebook.
I'm all about tool belts and aprons. I'm all about pockets, so
Yeah. I mean, who
that's
isn't?
basically a way to add pockets to any outfit. All right. So those are some tips generally for tools, but we wanted to talk a little bit about the specific tools that we wish we'd bought sooner. So I will start us off with my top 3. My first one would be good specific presser feet for my sewing machine. So for years, I sewed with various machines that weren't very expensive. They came with some presser feet, but I didn't use them all that much. I used like the zipper foot and the basic ones, but there were a lot of feet that came with it that I didn't even know what they were, when I first started out. And then years ago, I got my first Bernina sewing machine, and the quality of these machines is just, it's pretty incredible. And they have some really specific presser feet that go with it that just make a lot of things easier and cleaner and more high quality. So once I started learning more about presser feet and getting presser feet that really fit the purpose that I was, for the sewing that I was doing in that moment, that was pretty life-changing as far as sewing goes. So that would be my top one. That was something that I didn't get into right away, but I really see the value in now is good presser feet. So, and those Bernina feet are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I remember once going to Modern Domestic here in Portland, and somebody there was showing me the catalog of all the Bernina feet. How many there are. Oh my goodness, there are so many.
Yeah. I think one thing, caution with the presser feet is to make sure there's lots of universal, I'm using air quotes, presser feet out there. And that's not to say that universal foot may work. Maybe it will work for your machine, but it's really a good idea to make sure you're getting one that's specific to your sewing machine, because it can kind of mess with the machine timing and get things out of whack if you're using something that's not specific to your machine. So
Yeah.
a little cautionary note there. Specific to your sewing machine. But Bernina just has it's really, Bernina machines are beautiful, but really a good reason to buy one if it's in your budget is those presser feet. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah. And I know we're talking up Bernina a lot. We both really love Bernina machines, but there are lots of other high quality machines that also have high quality presser feet as well.
Yeah,
so it's something to think about when you're buying a machine. It's, what kind of feet you can get for it.
I love Bernina, but at home I have an old Kenmore. So lots of good machines out there besides Bernina, but we do love Bernina.
Yeah. And then my next tool that I didn't get right away and that I wish I'd bought sooner is a clapper. So if you don't know what a clapper is, it's a tool that you use in pressing, and it helps you to basically press down a seam without using the heat of the iron. So you can basically take your iron and press down to apply heat and steam, but you can't press the iron down into your fabric for that long without burning your fabric. So you can take it off and put the clapper on there and press down with the clapper while the heat and the steam are still trapped beneath it. And that will help you to get a really nice crisp seam, especially on things that are maybe like a bulkier fabric that might be hard to press down completely, really quickly. So a clapper helps a lot with that. And I just love it. It's a really simple tool, just basically a piece of wood.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's like the same idea as like when you curl your hair with a curling iron and you hold the curl after it comes off the curling iron so that it cools down and stays better. Same idea with the clapper, is it allows the heat to disperse. Gives you a longer lasting, nicer seam. Such a good tool. Pressing tools in general, though. I know that's your jam.
Yeah, I love pressing tools. I think the whole experience of pressing while you're sewing can be really underrated. I think it can really make a big difference in what your garment looks like when you're done. So I'm real into pressing, and you don't need to buy a lot of fancy tools. Most of the pressing tools are really pretty simple, like a clapper, a seam roll, things like that. They're just very simple things that make a big difference. And they're not expensive either. So that's something that I love and recommend. And then my third specific tool, I don't know if this is a tool or a notion or what you would call it, but this is something that I've been singing the praises of for many, many years because I love it so much, which is spray stabilizer. And so spray stabilizer is it's kind of like starch. So it comes in a can and you spray it on your fabric and it makes the fabric kind of crisp like a piece of paper. So if you're sewing something that is not stable, like maybe a silk that's really slippery, you can spray this on there and then it becomes just a lot more crisp and stable and much, much easier to sew. And then you can wash it out. So the caveat to that is that you have to wash it out. And so it has to be a fabric that you're willing to wash. And so if you wanted to dry clean your silk, you didn't want it to have that washed look and feel, then you would not want to use spray stabilizer. But most times when I sew with silk, I'm going to hand wash it anyway. So I will just pre-wash it, hand wash it, use the spray stabilizer, and then wash it again when I'm done. And it just makes sewing with those kinds of fabrics so much easier. It doesn't build up on your iron. It's a great product, and you can find it at a lot of craft stores. Our local sewing stores carry it. The brand that I've always used is Sullivan's spray stabilizer, so you can look that up online too.
I just ordered some of it for a slip dress I'm making.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite things ever, my favorite tips ever when it comes to sewing.
Yeah, it truly is Sari's number one sewing tip, I feel like.
It is. I love sewing with silk. I really like silk, and it, as we all know, it can be a pain to sew. So anything that makes that easier. What about you, Haley? What are your top three?
Okay, well, this was hard because I do love a good sewing tool, but number one for me has to be a rotary cutter, more just like a rotary cutter setup, a mat and a rotary cutter. I hate sewing. I think a lot of people hate, or not hate sewing. Oh, God. Oh, no.
Sorry, the truth comes out.
No, I hate cutting. I love sewing. I hate cutting. It's my least favorite part of, oh my gosh, of the sewing process. Sewing muslins, I think it's fine. Fitting, I like it. But something about cutting just feels like this obstacle. And as soon as I upgraded my cutting setup to a rotary cutter and a mat, I feel like it just changed my life. So much faster, so much easier. I personally feel like I can get, once I got over the learning curve, a lot more precision. And so that's my number one thing that I would recommend to anyone who hates cutting, not sewing, but cutting, like me. Maybe consider a rotary cutter, or at the very least, some better shears for cutting with.
Yeah.
I think that number two would have to be a magnetic pincushion because I'm I'm a very fast sewer and I need something to catch my pins for me, or else they're going to end up like in my hair, on the floor. My toddler's going to be running around with them. So
Yeah.
magnetic pincushion definitely saves me a lot of cleanup after I'm
Yeah.
done sewing.
I love them. I think they're so handy.
I just want to like throw my pins in the general direction of the receptacle.
Yeah.
I know that like physics will take care of the rest for me.
Yeah, I've tried a lot of different pin keeping solutions. I've tried like the wrist pin cushions and all different kinds, and I think magnetic is definitely the way to go.
It is the way to go, for sure, in my opinion. And then lastly, I love wash away adhesive tapes. I didn't discover this stuff until I'd been sewing for maybe like 10 years, but for me, it's changed the way I install zippers, especially things like zipper flies. Oh my gosh, if you don't have to pin that stuff, if you can just tape it down and go, huge difference, totally life-changing. I know that Taylor, she uses it for buttons. Before she sews her buttons on, she just tapes them down
That's
with
so
some adhesive
smart.
tape. Isn't that so clever? So she told me that. Now I do that too. Just one more reason to love wash away adhesive tape. And if you haven't used it before, it comes on like a little roll, and there's paper that you peel away, and it's this double-sided adhesive tape. And you can sew it like right into your garment, and then when you wash it, it'll wash right out. Kind of like the spray stabilizer. I guess there is the caveat of that you have to, I suppose, wash it out at some point, but that's never been like an issue for me. Usually I feel like I use it on like pants or jackets and things like that. So those guys get washed. And usually it's hidden away places. You don't even have to wash it before you wear it. No one's going to know that tape's in there but you.
Yeah. That's really smart. You know, I've used actual like tape to tape in zippers in the past, and I have never actually used wash away adhesive tape to do that, but that is so smart. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, especially lapped and centered zippers. It makes, I mean, I sew mostly invisible zippers unless I'm sewing a fly these days, but you can make like the cleanest centered and lapped zippers with wash away tape. Amazing. We should make a YouTube video about that.
Yeah, we should. And spray stabilizer. Here are all the
Yeah.
adhesive like things you can use. That's a great tip. I love that.
Wow, we covered a lot of ground today. So to recap, we introduced icebreakers. If you want to join in on the icebreaker fun, make sure to use the hashtag icebreakers for makers with your fun icebreakers. We also discussed our favorite sewing tools. Sari, her top 3 are good presser feet, a clapper, and spray stabilizer. And I recommended a rotary cutter, magnetic pin cushion, and wash away adhesive tape. If you want to learn more about this, there's lots of great inspiration and more on this topic. You can visit the community if you're a member, and we'll link to the post we talked about earlier in the show notes so you can jump on there and join in on the conversation. Also, check out our Sewing Spaces tours on YouTube. It's a really fun series that we did where different team members kind of give everybody a little tour of their sewing room. We go over tools, all sorts of fun things. And if you like to nerd out about that kind of stuff like we do, it's a fun watch.
And those are really fun. I really enjoyed those.
When I watched them the first time, I was just like, oh, my teammates are so cute and so cool.
Can't wait to see everybody in person again.
I know. So exciting. And then we also have a Sewing Spaces guide, which is a free download that will also link in those show notes. So if you like this episode, please leave us a review. It helps other people to find us, and it helps to let us know that you like what we're doing. And we're going to also start a second new thing this week and share some reviews at the end of every episode. So TK Weaver 1 writes, I enjoy listening to Seamwork Radio. Sari and Haley are laid back and easy to listen to. It feels a bit like having tea with a couple of friends and discussing topics we all enjoy. Thanks, TK Weaver 1.
Yeah, thank you. We were just talking about this before and saying that both of us feel like we're called laid back a lot. Mm-hmm. Like that's come up in the reviews. So we've gotten a lot of great reviews lately. So thank you to everybody who's left us a review in the last month. Mm-hmm. We really appreciate it. And we read every single one, but a lot of them described us as laid back. And I have been called laid back since I was a child, and I just think it's so funny. It's such a funny way to think about myself.
I don't feel like I'm a laid back person, but I also get called laid back often. I feel like maybe a lot of my internal struggles are around my like not being laid back, but I'm glad that we project that.
Yeah, I don't think anybody ever truly feels. Well, maybe if you're, you've reached enlightenment, you do. But
yeah,
I think most people probably feel a lot more anxiety inside than they show outside. At least I think that's probably true for both of us. But thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad that we project that because I like the idea of projecting laid back vibes and calm vibes to everybody who listens.
Yeah. Our next review is going to be like, yeah, they seem laid back, but Haley apparently hates sewing. So thumbs down.
Yeah. Our next episode will just be complaining about sewing.
It's not a bad idea. Sometimes we all have those days, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. You gotta vent sometimes about the things that you love even.
Yeah. It's healthy, I think. But thank you, TK Weaver 1. We appreciate it, and we read all your reviews, and they really do mean so much to us. So thanks. Well, I think that is all we have for you today, but we will catch you next time. Thank you for joining us. Bye.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, guys.